Here in Surrey, we're lucky to live in the greenest county in England, with almost a quarter of the county covered in woodland. That's over 42,000 hectares. This is compared to a national average of just 10%, and around a quarter of the woodland in Surrey is also considered ancient, which means it's rich in biodiversity and contains important areas of lowland heath.
Lowland heaths, like the one we've got here in Chobham Common, are important habitats, and we're lucky enough to have habitats like this across Surrey. But in the last 200 years, we've lost almost 85% of them, so it's important that we protect what's left.
Chobham Common was originally settled during the Bronze Age, when the area was first cleared. It has a long history of military use, particularly prior to the Crimean War in the 19th century, when around 8,000 soldiers were stationed here, and even Queen Victoria came to visit. It was also used during the First and Second World Wars for testing vehicles and equipment, and for housing prisoners of war. It was heavily damaged, and the southern part was subsequently ploughed and reseeded, while other parts were left to rewild.
In 1955, there was an outbreak of myxomatosis which devastated the rabbit population here. And what happened was the gorse and the undergrowth started to regenerate, and this became a problem in the 1960s. Then in 1966, Surrey County Council bought the land, and in the 1980s you could actually come here and cut your own Christmas tree to try and keep the trees under control. The area is now managed by the Surrey Wildlife Trust.
I'm on Chobham Common to meet up with Mark Leach, local birder and photographer, looking for some of the birds that are arriving to spend the winter with us. And as the tawny owls begin to hoot, we're also heading to Papercourt Lock to see if we can track down some of their cousins.
And that's all to come, along with what to look out for on a Surrey heathland near you right now. In the meantime, I'm Phil, this is Duncan, and this is Surrey Uncommon. Welcome to Surrey Uncommon, where we take a look at what's going on and around the Surrey heathlands right now. Now, this time of year, blackbirds, sparrows, even Dartford warblers stay with us for the winter. But a lot of other birds arrive here just for the winter. So I'm meeting up with Mark Leach, who's a local birder and photographer, to see if we can spot some of them. So Mark, thanks very much for being with us today. Here we are on Chobham Common. Is this kind of a favourite place for you to come and do some birding?
It is. It's right on my doorstep. It's only a couple of miles away, so it's easy to get to, and yeah, it's a great place to come and explore.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose not just the wildlife here, is it? It's also quite a lot of history with this site as well.
Yeah, 1850s, Queen Victoria time, military training area, and it was the start of a lot of plans for the Crimean War, and again during the First and Second World War, and a lot of the practices that were carried out here have been carried on in time through military experience.
Amazing. And obviously, I suppose that did quite a lot of damage to the common, didn't it?
Yes.
Particularly during the sort of, back in Victorian times, but also during the Second World War.
Yes, a lot of tanks and vehicles were on the area, so they would tear the ground up. It was back then. It was obviously a lot of grassland, but obviously with the vehicles, it tore up. It was very sandy, very open. Kind of regenerated the area. Yes, but it did cause quite a bit of damage. It took a few years afterwards to repair it.
Yeah. And I suppose there's a lot of conservation work still going on here at the moment, isn't there?
Continuously. In fact, I was just saying, there's teams on site today doing some habitat management and trying to remove some of the invasive species where it's become overgrown. They come in during the winter months, do a lot of clearance in preparation for spring.
For spring. Fantastic. And obviously it's just after dawn here this morning. What can we expect to see this time of year?
So, autumn, everything tends to slow down. There's no mad rush to get into the area, so everything slows down. It's all about keeping warm, finding food. Chobham Common is very good as lowland heathland for our ground nesting birds, nightjar, woodlark, in particular Dartford warbler. Obviously the nightjars are back in Africa getting a suntan, but we still have the woodlark and Dartford warblers on site. Hopefully we'll pick up some Dartfords later on, but we also get a lot of the autumn and winter migratory birds coming through, in particular thrushes, redwing, fieldfare, as well as the continental blackbirds, song thrush. If you're really lucky, you might come across ring ouzels. So there's a lot of thrushes. We also get a lot of the little birds coming through, yellow-browed warblers. So there's quite a range of birds that we will hopefully see, but birds fly, you never know whether they're going to be here or not. These are fenceless grazing. They're wearing collars. So the collar will either play music or noise, or some have like sprays. And when they get to the perimeter, the cattle don't know not to go any further. This is one of my favourite areas, this little walk we're going to do now. It's a little bit off the normal route of the regulars that use it. Quite a varied habitat. We've got a little bit of high ground, which you'll see has got heather and gorse and the grass, and we've got a dip there, a bit of a valley where there's a river and it's quite boggy and marsh, so we get different types of wildlife there.
Yeah, it feels much more open than, say, Horsell Common, which is actually quite wooded, isn't it?
It is. Horsell Common was left alone for quite a while, and the trees were allowed to develop, and they've overtaken obviously a lot of the heathland there. I know they're doing a lot of work to try and open it up again and create the heathland, the heather, but there's some areas that they're just going to leave alone. We talk about like a patchwork of habitat. We do need the trees, we need the woodland, but we also need a lot of this gorse here. A lot of the birds feed and nest in the gorse here, so we need that. The heather, Dartford warblers love the heather. They nest in there, they feed in there. It's cover, it's protection for them throughout the winter time. And then we've got the paths here, the quite open grassy paths. This is what the woodlark love. They'll feed along these paths looking for spiders, beetles, bugs, larvae, but they nest just off the edges. Okay. They'll be nesting in the gorse, the scrub, the heather. So we do need that variety of open habitat for all our different types of wildlife.
So as well as being a keen birder, obviously you're a very keen photographer as well. And I've seen some of the photos that you've taken, and they're amazing. What sort of photos have you got from Chobham Common?
So Chobham Common, I was very lucky this year. I was out here and I was looking for nightjars. Now, they are nocturnal birds. They rest up, they roost during the day. Very, very difficult to find. They nest on the ground, so it's very difficult to see. On the odd occasion, I've come across them. This year, for about 3 months, never saw one. Yes, you come out at night time, you can hear them, but came out on here. I was so fortunate that I actually found 2 day roosting nightjars, and they were on logs.
No way.
And they were sitting up, and I was very fortunate. Had the big camera lens. I was able to get some really decent shots of them, so that was a highlight for this year. The nightjars, but also Dartford warbler on here. I've had some really nice shots, especially with the gorse in the summer, the bright yellow gorse with the Dartfords sitting up singing in there.
I think the thing about the nightjars, I suppose, are that they are so well camouflaged, aren't they? So even spotting one is quite impressive on its own.
You need to look for them. As you say, they're so well camouflaged, and when they sit on the logs, they blend in. They just look like a piece of the wood. I found myself looking at every branch, every log. Where would you go if you were a nightjar? And I would say very fortunate that I found 2 in the same day.
And obviously I know you travel all over the place birding.
Yes.
What's Can you narrow down like your most favourite photos that you've taken?
That's so difficult because all the photos generate memories and great times of birding. Two probably of my favourite birds I photographed was the black-browed albatross up at Benton Cliffs a couple of years ago. I ventured up there 2 or 3 times. Very fortunate that I did get some good photos of that. A bird that the chance of seeing one around the UK is so lucky. Earlier this year I went up to the Isle of Skye.
Very nice.
And had the opportunity to go out on the boat and photograph white-tailed eagles or seagulls. We were actually on the boat watching one on the hillside. It was sitting there, and all of a sudden one came over its head, at the head of the boat, and took a fish from the water. I literally tracked it, got a sequence of 4 or 5 photographs of it grabbing this fish from the water and flying off. So those are probably 2 of my favourite birds.
Amazing. And obviously the white-tailed eagles are sort of a conservation or reintroduction success story, aren't they?
Yes, very much so. The Isle of Wight reintroduction programme. They've released quite a few birds over the years, and they've spread out. They've distributed around the UK, Sussex, Dorset. They've got quite a few resident pairs now. Hopefully they'll breed, generate more white-tailed eagles down here in the south coast.
Amazing. Fantastic. Well, let's go and see what we can find.
Let's do it. So we can do a loop here. What we'll do is we'll go around. There's a little bit of a hill there. We can come around there and back this way.
So obviously this time of year there's a lot of different birds around. I mean, you get the big flocks of tits and sort of tree creepers, nuthatches, those sorts of things all gather together, goldcrest, don't you?
Yeah.
But then there are some sort of more flamboyant birds, I suppose, like the hawfinch and then the waxwings.
The waxwings, definitely. Again, they are very much weather driven or food driven. Scandinavia, they have a poor supply of berries, or it's really cold. Then we start to get the flocks coming down into the UK. This year there are a few waxwings in Scotland, Aberdeen area. There's small numbers northeast England, Northumberland. I've had a few the last few days. We haven't had them so far south yet. Again, I put that down to we've had reasonably warm weather. Once it gets a colder spell, then yes, the numbers might increase. They eat berries, rowan trees. So if you know a supermarket car park which has rowan trees and berries on it, keep an eye on it, because they'll come in and they'll feed and they'll stick around those trees, consuming as many of the berries as they can, but at the same time looking where are they going to go to next. You find them in hedgerows, blackthorn, holly berries. You know, look on the treetops and on the antennas, aerials on top of houses. They'll sit up there, they'll be looking around, and then they'll drop down, feed on the berries. Then they'll go away to digest the berries, and then they'll come back. And it'll stick around for days, if not weeks, as long as there is a supply there. We'll go up if we go, I don't want to go that way, because that literally goes into the boggy, marshy area. That's where you find, in the summer, you'll find the sundew down in there. Very boggy area. But what we'll do is we'll go over the hill here and we'll go around there. Hopefully we'll find, see some Darfords, but still a bit cold. They'll be tucked up somewhere, keep it nice and warm.
I was reading an interesting thing about the common and the rabbits that used to be here, but then were pretty much wiped out by myxomatosis. I was just seeing some evidence of rabbits here.
Yes, there are still rabbits on here, not like the numbers it used to be. Darford warbler, just gone down into the bracken there. I think it was the male, quite dark in colour. Almost exactly where I thought I'd find them. Dartford warblers territory can be up to 200 metres diameter, so they'll hold that territory. Yes, there's a slight crossover with other Dartfords. Come on, show yourself again. Dartfords will be right along the ground, looking through the heather, looking for spiders, beetles. It's one of the only warblers we have that stay here all winter but don't really change the diet. Beetles, bugs, larvae during the summer, protein, so they can breed, whereas wintertime a lot of the birds convert to seeds and fruit for the energy, for the carbohydrates. Dartford warblers, they'll stick to the bugs and the spiders, and that's why they're in the heather looking for anything that's in there. Do you see it again? I think it was the winter of 62, 63. Oh, there it is, sitting up there nicely on top of the bracken, just at the bottom of the hill. He's sitting up, going left.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so winter of 62, 63, it was suggested there's only 11 pairs of Dartford warblers left in the UK. There's been a good improvement over the years. I think it was 2024, numbers increased by 24%. They're doing a lot better, I think, because of
the management.
The management, yeah, maintaining the heather. And they're so focused on feeding. I've had them 2-3 meters in front of me just standing there. I actually had to move back with my camera because I was too close. My background,
yeah, your background is in the military, isn't it?
Yes, I served 24 years in the army, and that's what brought me to Surrey. I got posted here in 1997. I met my wife, and I've been anchored here ever since. And being military, I got to spend a lot of time on our heathlands, ash ranges, for example, Purbright ranges, over Barossa, over towards Sandhurst, Camberley. These are all MOD sites, ranges, which quite often are managed by Surrey Wildlife Trust, other organisations, to maintain it as heathland. We'll head around again around the corner here. We've got that Dartford here, but it's more towards that corner where I had the pair a couple of days ago. This could be another bird, it could be the same one. There we go, there we go. Dartford warbler again. And the second one, there's the pair. We can probably get a bit closer. They're teasing, they're showing and then hiding. Just not gorse. Flitting around the bottom of that bracken. I've spent 11 hours 45 minutes waiting for the photograph. stone chat, I think.
Chat, isn't it? Yeah. 2, 3.
In fact, Nippets, I think. There's a lot of time spent on the management. I know some sites, they've got a 5, 10, 15-year plan managing the heathlands. Forestry England, they've got a 100-year plan because they will clear a whole area of trees. Obviously the wood's needed for building, etc. But their plan is, right, we'll clear this area this year, then we'll leave it for a few years, then we'll replant in that area. But then the next area they clear will be next to another cleared area, so any birds or wildlife that was in that cleared area
And then move on.
moves on. So it's always maintaining a habitat for the wildlife.
I suppose that's why it's kind of a special place, isn't it? Because there's not a lot of heathland like this left in Surrey.
It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. If we go back in history, you know, this would have been woodland, but we used the wood for building, for firewood. We grazed our cattle on here, which kept everything short and nice. Well, we don't graze cattle anymore. We don't use the wood, so it overtakes the heathland. And if we left it alone, we wouldn't get the heathland, we wouldn't get the ground nesting birds. It's an SPA, specially protected area, because of those birds. And as long as those birds are here, it has to be managed. Money has to be invested to maintain it.
So of all the heaths, heathlands, actually of all the areas in Surrey, you know, what would be your favourite spot to go to?
I have to say Horsell Common and Heather Farm. It's right on my doorstep. I was very fortunate to volunteer back in 2010 when Heather Farm was created. It used to be the mushroom farm. It was taken over by Horsell Common Preservation Society and developed as a SANG, a suitable alternative natural green space.
And now the idea of a SANG is to take pressure off of like the Horsell Common itself.
Yes, yes. There's a lot of open green fields, public access walks from Horsell Common all the way up to Fair Oaks Airport. You've got a wetlands area, a pond that was dug out with support and help from the Wetlands Trust. And it was designed, like you say, to take the pressure off the common, but still give you somewhere to go and enjoy, you know, the outdoors and the green spaces.
Unfortunately, we haven't seen anything really. A couple of Dartfords just appearing, but just fleeting glimpses sort of through the heather. But it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this morning. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And hopefully we can meet up again in the summer when maybe we'll see, you know, actually see some birds.
That would be great.
Amazing.
Look forward to it. Thank you. Goldcrest up there.
Goldcrest.
Yeah, up near the top
Right.
there. Yeah, just above where that old nest is. Still a couple in there.
So this is very cool. I don't know if you can see that, but as I've been running this morning, I've just found that I'm being followed by a couple of bats. It's very cool. Just buzzing around my head. See them disappearing off there and then heading back towards me, straight back towards me. There. Shoom. How cool is that? So I was just out for a run and I've just stopped because I heard some alarm calls from a flock of, I think, long-tailed tits. I just looked up to the left and you can see there, just flying away. There it goes. You can hear the alarm calls there. what I imagined to be. I didn't get a close look, but I imagine that's just a buzzard. Just a buzzard, but a buzzard. And you can hear now. Yeah, I think that's a squirrel also having a shout. So it is currently something like 6:30, between 6:30 and 7 in the morning. It's the first frosty night of the year, and I've just heard my first tawny owl. There it is. There's 2 deer being chased by a fox. Now you can see the fox is over to the left, it's just disappeared. And then the 2 deer here. Just saw off the fox, just disappeared into the hedge over here. Just where that sun is, just there. Pretty crazy. As you can see, but right here we have, there it is, got a tree creeper just crawling outside the outside of this willow tree. Just hunting around in the bark there, looking for insects. In the trunk. It's very difficult to see. There it goes. Down there. Yeah, there it goes. Much better view there. Look at that. There it is again there. It's just moved. Now it's sitting perched up there in the sunshine. Still singing away. They say you can always recognise a song thrush because it just repeats itself over and over again. Such a great song. So I'm not sure what we've got here, but I think it's either redwings or missel thrush. I can't quite see through the trees. Now, at this time of year, the nights are drawing in, and you can start to hear the tawny owls calling. Now, I don't know about you, but it's rare that I actually see an owl. So I'm meeting up with Mark Leach at Papercourt Meadows to head out into the evening to see if we can spot one.
So Mark, thanks for joining us again. Here we are at Papercourt Meadows, and this time we're out looking for owls.
Fingers crossed, yes.
I've heard this is a really good place for owls. I've been here myself and not seen any, but I know they're here. So what could you expect to see here?
So Papercourt Meadows are in the floodplains, very grassy area, very open. They do have a couple of resident pairs of barn owls, 2, possibly 3 pairs, more over towards that direction, but obviously they quarter, they feed all over this area. That's what we're hoping we might get this evening. To the wood area, over to the side here, tawny owl. Probably not going to see those, but there's a good chance when it gets dark we might hear them. At the far end here where the farm is, the farm buildings, we do have little owl. I know that because I did see one today when I came out. They do feed during the day, little owls, and they do quite often sit up on branches throughout the day, so you've probably got more chance of seeing little owls more than any of the other ones really. But this place is also well known for its short-eared owls.
Okay.
A few years ago we had 5 or 6 quartering the area. I didn't know where to look. You could stand anywhere and you'd have them flying past you, and some great views of them. Again, because they are a winter visitor, it all depends on Northern Europe, Scandinavia, what the weather's like there. If it's really cold, or they've had a real poor year for their food source, mammals, voles for example, we might get a lot of them. On other years where they have a good food supply, we might just get the odd one. There is a few around at the moment around the UK, but not as many as we had in previous years.
So why here? What's here that's really good for owls?
So we've got the grass, reasonably short grass, big open areas, a great habitat for its food source, mammals, reptiles, insects. It is floodplain. Obviously, if it doesn't flood, then we generally have a good supply of voles.
Right.
When we have really wet weather, this area does hold a lot of the flood water between Send and the River Wey here. Again, that can affect the amount of food supply for the owls. The more food, the longer the owls will stick around throughout the winter. If it's poor, then they may have to move on. And again, if it's flooded, it's very difficult to find a food source in the water.
And I heard a fun fact, I think, which is there is more voles in this country than there are people,
More than likely.
but you never see them.
Well, you never see them. They could possibly be just sitting there now, but you never see them. They're in thick grass areas and they're tucked up nice and warm.
And I suppose, like we said, that's the reason why the owls are here, because hopefully within this grass there is a lot of voles, like you said, and the other insects and stuff. Now, I suppose the difference between some of the owls is that some of them are day feeders, some of them are night feeders, or some of them are crepuscular.
Yes,
Is that
yeah.
right?
So morning and evening or dawn and dusk feeders. Little owls, I've sat and watched them up until 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. Then they tend to go and roost up and digest their food. Then they come back out later in the afternoon. So dawn and dusk. Barn owls, yes, hopefully, again, we're going to see those dawn and dusk feeders during the summer and breeding season. You may actually see them all day long because they've got to feed their young.
Right.
And depending on the amount of food source, you might actually get them throughout the day feeding. We've got some nice low sunshine.
Yeah.
You
It'd be
just
lovely if we could see them right now. That would be perfect.
beautiful.
With the light.
Wish I'd bought my camera, Nev. Their natural habitats, yes, the dead wood. The dead wood starts to decay. It becomes a micro-habitat for all its food source, the bugs, beetles, grubs. If we take it away to keep it nice and tidy, we take away that food source. You know, there's a lot of country parks where they take it all away to keep it nice and clean and tidy. But really, we should be just leaving it alone, allowing the branches to fall to the ground, to break down naturally, creating perches and habitats for not just owls, but all the other, animals. The problem with the sunlight is we probably end up having to stay longer till it gets a bit darker. The owls tend to react to the amount of light.
So what's the most common owl? So if someone's out and about in the common, what? I mean, obviously they might hear a tawny at night.
Yes.
I mean, it feels like it's rare that you actually do see an owl though.
The most common, I believe, is the barn owl. I think we are more likely to see it, A, because of its colouring.
Yep.
It's white, it does stand out. They do, as I say, they do come out dusk and dawn more likely when we're around compared to the nocturnal ones. But I think you've got as much chance to see the little owl as anything else.
Because I suppose they're around during the day, potentially.
And they sit out on walls, buildings, and throughout the day, resting up rather than hiding away. So we'll take this path, and it's just down there where, fingers crossed. Quite often you'll get pie wagtail.
Yeah.
In the summer you'll get the grey wagtail as well. You'll get yellow wagtail in the field chasing the cattle around. quick look from this side, but this is this tree, and then the next one down is where we can't see it there. Yeah, have a look from here. So we've got this first dead tree, or first fallen tree. I think the nest site is that second one. You can see up the trunk there is the hole, which I believe is its nest site. Sometimes just changing the angle you look at the tree, because they could be, they're so well camouflaged, they could be just sitting there looking at you until you get a different angle. You don't realise they're actually sitting there. Little owls will nest, not just in hollow trees, but you know, if they find a gap in a wall or an old building, almost like a cave, you find them in quarries. I know a couple of sites down in Dorset where former quarries, and they nest in there. They come and sit on the edge, they get the sunlight, get nice and warm, and they just disappear inside the rocks very, very quickly. Of course, we're putting all our eggs in one basket there, trying to find them on one particular day. They're not so vocal this time of year. Come springtime, you know, you'll hear them. It's not a hoot as such, it's more of almost like a whistle, or I don't know how we describe it. A call. I'm not even going to try to replicate it.
I was waiting for that.
I'm not going to do that.
Will they tend to hold this territory as well?
It's been here for years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they've been here for many, many years. I don't know how the family system works. Generally, the young will be pushed out of the nest and they'll go somewhere else. So we've got two choices. We can walk back this way and scan across, or we can go through the path which goes over to that pylon and then cuts across. That way's a little bit more wet. So, perfect barn owl conditions. There's a little bit of wind, but it's not too windy, it's not noisy, no rain. You know, the barn owl has developed itself as, you know, silent flying, very, very soft feathers. So it struggles with the wind a bit more, but it means it can hear very, very well and hear any movement. But they're no good if they're not out there looking at us.
Well, we didn't manage to see any owls, unfortunately, but luckily we've had your amazing photos to look at.
Thank you. Good.
So that we can see what all the owls look like. And it's been amazing talking to you, both here at Papercore and at Chobham, and I really appreciate you taking the time. So thank you so much
Pleasure,
again.
thank you. No.
And like I said, hopefully we can catch up again.
Definitely.
Maybe next summer go hunting for some nightjars.
Yes, oh, that'd be great, definitely.
Amazing.
Maybe we get owls then. In the
Maybe,
summer.
we hope. I mean, they're here.
We know they're here.
They're here somewhere. Yeah, maybe next time.
Yes, fingers crossed.
Amazing. Thanks
Thank
again.
you. No,
Thank
thanks.
you. And that's all we have time for this month. Massive thank you to Mark for his insight and his photos, and also to Surrey Wildlife Trust and Surrey County Council for their help with the filming. And that's all we have time for this year. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in 2026. Thanks for watching.